Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome everybody, this is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. This is still again a recording in the time of coronavirus in partial lockdown. I'm here from my cramped study and I do have a guest who's with me remote via Skype. I would like to welcome Dorian. How you doing?
Hi, all good here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for making the time. If you are new to our channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Down here in the show notes, you will also find not only the link to the website of Energy Robotics, but also to the private LinkedIn profile of Dorian. That said, Dorian, I've seen you've been an academic guy all your life. How did you end up working on robots?
I actually started about 15 years ago working on robots. And what piqued my interest there was at first the Soccer World Championship for robots. And this is something I started as a student. And we actually became with our team multiple world champion in robotic soccer. That was start during my early study years. And I continued in this area and also did my PhD in elect robotics, walking robots later on. And that brought me then in the end also to my founding of our company that we have, Energy Robotics now.
Is that really a thing? Robotic soccer?
Yes, certainly. It's a great competition. The biggest competition in the world is called RoboCup, and they run competitions every year in multiple categories. One, for example, is two-legged robots playing soccer against each other in teams. And we played, for example, with this guy behind me here. He's called Bruno. And with him, we played 3-on-3 soccer against other teams from around the world. And we won the world championship with this robot twice. But also with four-legged robots. And there's other robots competitions where it's not so much about soccer, but other areas like search and rescue, for example, where they have competitions of teams trying to explore unknown areas. For example, after an earthquake has hit an area, they need to make new maps of this area. And so they tried with robots to explore and find victims in an unknown area.
Just to make sure, when you won this World Cup, there was actually a World Cup, so there have been multiple teams from different continents, and it was not just you and another university here from Germany, right?
Right. It's actually running every year. The RoboCup is having a world championship every year around the world. It's going to be interesting what they're going to be doing this year since the Corona shutdown. It's going to be quite obstructive with that. But usually teams from around the world travel to different areas to have this competition. And depending on the competition, there are usually between 10 and 20 teams coming from around the world to participate in each category.
So, sorry, just out of pure curiosity, before we get to the next topic, did you give your robot players cute names like Thomas Müller or Müller Robot or something?
Something similar. Actually, this guy, as I said, is called Bruno, and this name Bruno came from the soccer player in Darmstadt, Bruno Labbadia. So he was named after one of the soccer players in our hometown at the Darmstadt University.
Love it. Just great. Okay, so I never thought I'll have somebody in my interviews here who won the Soccer World Cup. Very glad to have you here. But let's get down to business. You are right now the co-founder of a robotics company, which is not surprising given your history. Can you tell us a little bit how you got there? And what you guys are actually doing, because we met at an event back in December 2019 at Technical University Darmstadt. And I actually do believe I took a very nice picture through one of the lenses of your robots, right?
Correct, yeah. Well, as I said, we came from this robotic soccer area, which was a very interesting start for me personally. I had lots of fun doing that, but also the topics were quite interesting from a scientific point of view for robotics. Having robots play soccer in a dynamic changing environment with only their onboard computational power, so quite limited, but they had to do it completely autonomous. So they had to have quite some artificial intelligence on board. And in this RoboCup competition, there were other competitions, other categories like the search and rescue area. And this is where one of my co-founders, Stefan Kohlbrecher, was quite active in. He was the team leader from our team Hector for a couple of years. And he participated with this in a lot of these competitions for search and rescue robots. And this is what brought us in the end to robots that are more for harsh environments. And then we found this competition, which was called the Total Argos Challenge by the French oil and gas company Total. And they had an international competition where they wanted robots to perform autonomous inspection of oil and gas sites, especially offshore oil and gas sites. This competition took place from 2014 to 2017 with 3 competitions, one each year. And the final competition in 2017 with our team Argonauts at that time, we won this competition. So this is how we got into this area, and we kind of stuck in this particular field. We're now doing with our company Energy Robotics autonomous software robots for inspection of oil and gas sites mostly, but also other hazardous environments.
Let us, for our viewers and our visitors, because most people are not familiar with that. So there are very remote platforms in the very northern North Sea around Europe, and other very remote places that are actually functioning autonomous or semi-autonomous. And the oil and gas companies try to minimize the contact with them. They want to have it running as smooth, as secure, as autonomous as possible. That said, you then have a little robot that is running around those, I assume, very gigantic platforms all the time. How would you, I, or a listener out there who may be only listening to this interview, how would they have to imagine that scene?
Okay. Yeah. So the robots we're deploying to these kind of sites, offshore as well as onshore sites, are usually tracked robots. So they have rubber tracks, one of each on each side, which they can use to drive forward, but also to skid steer and turn in place by running them in opposite directions. What these robots usually carry as a payload is a set of cameras to perform visual inspection. So they can use these cameras to take video feeds, but also take high-resolution HDR photos of certain areas that are interesting. Plus, these robots can carry a lot of additional payloads depending on the actual use case for each customer. So they can have, for example, gas sensors. These gas sensors usually sniff the air for chemicals, and they will provide you with a concentration measurement, so you can see how much concentration of a specific gas is in the area where the robot is running around. And that helps you to basically map a whole area, map a whole plant or such an offshore platform with gas levels. And then you can understand where a gas leak, for example, on the site might be occurring, where the highest levels are. And that helps you in understanding the operation of your site, and helps you to predict when you need to do the next maintenance run. When the gas leaks are getting bigger, you might have a problem. You might even have to do an emergency procedure to help with the gas leaks. And this is what these robots provide. But they can also carry other sensors like infrared cameras to see heat sources, or even cameras to visually detect gas leaks. So you can actually visualize a gas leaking out of a valve into the air, and you can visually see these gases leaking out.
When I'm imagining this right now, so there's somewhere in the very northern North Sea, very close to where you frequently see ice on the ocean, there is a big platform that is there to drill for gas. And on a regular basis, there's a very cute little robot running around and sniffing for gas. And in case it finds something, it phones home and somebody takes over the camera and looks around. Is that something how you could imagine that?
Yeah, that is very close to what we're actually doing. The robot can perform complete autonomous operations, so you can just let it roam, do its inspection rounds completely autonomous for weeks going on. And if there's something out of the ordinary, it will report that back to the supervisor, and the supervisor can take control of the robot, which is remotely. So the supervisor can do that from wherever around the world he is. And can then remotely log into this robot, drive it to specific locations, look at specific things even more closely to understand what is going on. So it's a combination of an autonomous inspection vehicle and a remote presence tool.
And I think I found the title of this interview, Meet Energy Robotics, they're building a sniffing robot. That said, we are talking not only here because you have this product, but also I do imagine there are like thousands of opportunities where it could run around, sniff, search for anything. Would that be possible? How could you adapt? What are you thinking? What are you theorizing is possible with this tool?
Maybe one thing to clarify, our company Energy Robotics is very much focused on the software for these robots to make them autonomous, to make them remotely operatable. The hardware itself for the oil and gas market comes from our business partner, EX Robotics. They produce the hardware, and we obviously can use our software on different kinds of robots. So for different applications, we can implement different robot hardware to perform these operations. There's obviously a lot of robot hardware platforms around the world. Some are becoming more and more popular, even in mainstream media. And obviously, we've looked into a lot of these robots to use them as hardware platforms for other applications. And we certainly have some use cases, some cases with other customers that are not in the oil and gas industry, but are also interested in employing similar technologies to their use case, where it's not so much about, as you say, sniffing of gas leak, but it could very well be to do visual inspection of industrial sites, or even to patrol the industrial site to prevent any intruders coming in.
That would be something I had in mind, not only like looking for human intruders, but also scaring away the raccoons.
Yeah, the robots are sometimes quite noisy, so they might very well already do that.
That is pretty interesting. So you guys are called Energy Robotics, but you're actually a software company. What you guys are running on? So what are the requirements if somebody out there who's interested in robotics, maybe have a robotic startups themselves? What would be the requirements to put your software on their hardware?
So our software can be run on very many different platforms. As I said earlier, we started from the soccer playing robots, went over to search and rescue robots, but also in industrial inspection, and we've run it on a lot of different kinds of robots. So we've made quite an effort to put hardware abstraction, one of our key features, so we can run our high-level software on a lot of different low-level platforms. And then again, depending on the existing hardware that someone might have, we are able to either provide only high-level software starting from a high abstraction point, or we can also go deep into the robots themselves and provide low-level support for low-level software, which we've done with a lot of robots already. In the end, we're providing a full software stack from anything that's running on the robot itself, making the robot move, making the robot do intelligent decisions, acquiring data, and so forth, to sending this data to the cloud, doing post-processing in the cloud of the data, and also giving the end users, the customers, a user-friendly user interface where they can use and supervise their robots right in the browser, so they don't need to install any additional software on their company laptops. They can just open a browser, go to our web application, and log into the robots they own, and program new missions there, supervise the missions they're doing, and get the resulting data from these missions.
I would be curious, how complicated is it, like, as you said, to program a new mission for a robot?
That depends very much on the amount of sensors your robot has. So depending on how many degrees of freedom you have to program them, it can be a bit more complex. But in general, we're providing a very user-friendly interface that allows an easy waypoint-based mission interface. So you can program the robot to go to specific waypoints on your site, acquire a certain set of data, for example, video feeds, photos, audio recordings, thermal camera images, things like that, and then report them back. And at the same time, while the robot is doing its autonomous rounds, it records the path it has been running and records the whole path back to the site. So you can get an overview of a map from your site where all these recorded data, images, and videos are then shown in this map, alongside with the gas readings, for example, with gas measurements.
I see. So it's very easy if some engineer is quite bored to program a robot to go around the platform. Once around, he dances a Macarena. Second way around, he dances a Vienna Waltz. If the robot is capable of that, that would be doable with your platform, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Glad we are talking about this. By the way, while you were talking, I was looking around a little bit, and turns out there is actually footage of a Robot World Cup soccer match, which I'll share in the blog post as well. If you go down here in the show notes, as we said, not only to find a website, your LinkedIn profile, but also footage from the Robot Soccer World Cup, which is quite funny because they're very small and very cute robots. That said, what are you guys currently looking for? Are you guys looking for new employees, new financing, or are you just waiting how COVID develops right now? And second question, how did the coronavirus so far impact your startup?
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that quite often. First, maybe on the coronavirus. So it has impacted certainly some areas, but for us, as we are providing basically a remote presence service, so our robots allow our customers to be present on a site without actually traveling there. So that is actually a solution that in current times is quite convenient for some customers. And we've received some feedback of our existing customers that they are very happy to be able to remotely visit some of their sites without having to drive there, which makes things a lot easier at the moment. On your other question, what we're looking for once, we're looking for investors at the moment. So we're doing our seed round now, looking for 1 million euros. We're talking with investors right now. So if you're interested, please contact me. And obviously, for scaling up, what we're doing at the moment is also looking for new employees in the area of robotics engineering, but also in web technologies.
In what technologies?
Web technologies. So anything from web user interfaces to web backend software, server software. Yeah.
Now I get it. That said, basically that was everything I want to know from you guys. First, don't miss watching the Robot Soccer World Cup, dear audience, this year, if it takes place. And secondly, keep in mind, there are sniffing robots around. Thank you very much for the interview. It was just a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.